Welcome to the Encouraging Word, a place for thoughtful conversation, reflective faith, and encouragement for the journey. I'm Pastor Eric. Wherever you're listening from, I'm glad you're here.
Good morning, beautiful people. This is Pastor Eric, Associate Pastor at Lyndhurst Baptist Church on the west side of Indianapolis, and Indiana State Chaplain for Broken Chains JC, and this is your Encouraging Word. We are continuing in our Atonement Theory series, and this week we are looking at the Governmental Theory, which helps us understand how God's justice preserves the moral order of the world and protects what is good. Today's devotion is entitled, Why the Cross Demonstrates Moral Seriousness. Our scripture for today comes from Romans chapter 3, verse 25 and 26. God presented Christ as a sacrifice of atonement to demonstrate his righteousness, so as to be just and the one who justifies those who have faith in Jesus. One of the central questions of the gospel is this: if God forgives, does that mean wrongdoing does not truly matter? If mercy is freely given, does justice lose its weight? Well, Scripture answers that question with a resounding no. Paul tells us that God presented Christ to demonstrate his righteousness. The cross is not only about forgiveness, it is about revelation. It shows the moral seriousness of sin, the integrity of divine justice, and the unwavering consistency of God's governance. In other words, the cross reveals that moral reality is not flexible, not negotiable, and not something that God simply overlooks. Wrong truly harms. Sin truly disrupts. Disorder truly matters. And because it matters, God does not treat it lightly. Governmental theory helps us see that the cross publicly displays God's commitment to moral order. Forgiveness is real, but it is never casual. Mercy is extended, but justice is never dismissed. The cross shows the universe that God's rule is morally trustworthy. The early church often spoke of the cross as the clearest revelation of both the gravity of sin and the depth of divine love. Anselm of Canterbury wrote, "You have not yet considered the way of sin." Anselm's statement is not meant to produce despair, but clarity. The cross reveals how serious moral disorder truly is, not because God delights in severity, but because goodness itself is infinitely valuable. What damages goodness cannot be trivial. John Stott helps us understand why this revelation matters for human trust. He wrote, "The essence of sin is man substituting himself for God. The essence of salvation is God substituting himself for man." This is from the Cross of Christ, chapter 4. Stott shows us that the cross is not only a demonstration of moral seriousness, it is also the demonstration of divine commitment. God does not merely uphold justice from a distance. He enters the cost of restoring what has been broken. That is why the cross matters so deeply. It tells us that the universe is morally meaningful. It tells us that justice is real. It tells us that mercy is costly. It tells us that God's governance is trustworthy. So if you've ever wondered whether wrongdoing truly matters, if you have questioned whether forgiveness means indifference, if you've struggled to understand why the cross had to be so costly, hear this encouraging word for today. The cross does not exaggerate the seriousness of sin. It reveals it. And at the very same time, it reveals the immeasurable depth of God's commitment to restore what sin has damaged. Receive this blessing. May you trust in the moral seriousness of God's world. May you rest in the mercy that never treats evil lightly. May you live in gratitude for the cross that reveals both justice and love in perfect harmony. Grace and peace to you, beautiful people.
Thanks for sharing this time with me. I hope these words have given you space to breathe and something steady to carry with you into the rest of your day. Until next time, grace and peace.